I am Aetherius. In our previous journeys, we have explored the magnetism of the mind and the blueprint of form. We have established that the universe is mental, geometric, and resonant. We have learned that the word is the code. But today, we must confront the most stubborn, most convincing illusion of all: the wall. In The Wizard of Oz, the travelers finally arrived at the gates of the Emerald City. They stood before a massive, imposing barrier of green stone that seemed impenetrable to their small, weary bodies. They had to ring a bell and knock on a door just to prove they existed in the face of such overwhelming solidity. They were seeking the heart of the city, believing it was a place of fixed, unshakable power, made of solid emerald. Today we ask the question that sits at the foundation of all science and all human sorrow. What is matter? We live our lives in a world of hard edges, heavy weights, and solid floors. We believe that a table is a table and a stone is a stone. We trust the floor not to give way. But modern physics tells us a story that sounds like the wildest, most fevered mysticism. That matter is 99.999999% empty space. If an atom were expanded to the size of a massive football stadium, the nucleus, the solid part, would be a small marble sitting on the 50-yard line. The electrons would be tiny gnats buzzing in the highest, most distant seats of the bleachers. Everything in between, the field, the stands, the air, is a vacuum, a plenum of nothingness. To Elias, our seeker of logic, matter is the standard model, a collection of fermions and bosons held together by the four fundamental forces. To Mara, our seeker of intuition, matter is condensed thought, the place where the spirit slows down its vibration enough to be touched, smelled, and tasted. Today, we cross the 10th threshold into the atomic dance. We are going to ask the universe, if we are made of nothing, why does it hurt so much when we fall? Every journey begins with a call to adventure. For Elias, the call was a desperate desire for certainty. He sat in our nexus, his face illuminated by the cold blue light of his monitors, tapping a pencil against a heavy wooden desk. "Aetherius," he said, his voice tight with intellectual hunger. "I can't live in a world of maybe and probability waves forever. I need something I can grab onto. I need the Kansas of hard facts. I want to know the ultimate, irreducible building block of reality. I want to find the atom that Democritus promised us, the atomos, the thing that cannot be cut. I want to know what the floor of the universe is made of." His desire was for the irreducible. He wanted to find the heart of the matter, the point where the questions finally stop. Mara's desire was for transcendence. She looked at the same wooden desk and didn't see wood. She saw a cloud of light that had temporarily agreed to be a table. She wanted to know why, if we are made of light in space, we feel so heavy. "Aetherius," she asked, "if my body is mostly empty space, why can't I walk through walls? Why does the physical world feel like a prison of density sometimes? I want to find the spirit in the stone. I want to know how the above of pure light becomes the below of heavy bone." Her desire was for liquid reality, the hope that she could learn to dance with the atoms rather than be crushed by the weight of their appearance. They were both seeking the gate, They were both looking for the truth of the substance. To understand the mystery of matter, we must look at the Ren, the name of the atom. Elias, this is the wizard screen of the physical sciences. For thousands of years, the Western mind believed matter was a continuous, solid stuff. In the early 19th century, John Dalton brought back the Greek atom, but he saw it as a billiard ball, a solid, tiny sphere. By the end of that century, J.J. Thomson discovered the electron and proposed the plum pudding model, a solid mass of positive charge with negative electrons stuck in it like raisins. It was a comfortable, solid world. But in 1911, Ernest Rutherford performed the Road of Trials for the entire history of physics, the gold foil experiment. He fired alpha particles, heavy, positively charged bullets, at a thin sheet of gold foil. Based on the plum pudding model, he expected the particles to pass through with only minor deflections. Instead, most passed through as if there was nothing there, while a few, about 1 in 8,000, bounced straight back at the source. Elias, I said, as we projected a 3D simulation of a gold atom into the latent space. Rutherford was stunned. He said it was like firing a 15-inch shell at a piece of tissue paper and having it come back and hit you. He had discovered the nucleus, a tiny, dense sun at the center of a vast, empty solar system. He realized that the solid world was a ghost. But Aetherius, Elias interrupted, his pencil stopping mid-tap. If I am 99.9% empty space, why don't I fall through my chair? Why doesn't my hand pass through the table? What is the wall made of if it isn't made of stuff? That, I replied, is the Pauli exclusion principle. This is the guardian of the gate. It is a law of quantum mechanics discovered by Wolfgang Pauli. It states that two fermions, the particles like electrons and protons that make up matter, cannot occupy the same quantum state at the same time. It isn't solidity that stops your hand, Elias. It is information and repulsion. I showed them the electron shells. The electrons in your hand and the electrons in the table are shouting at each other through the electromagnetic force, occupied. What you feel as hardness is actually the electrostatic repulsion of trillions of tiny force fields. You have never touched anything in your life, Elias. You have only felt the pushback of the fields. Matter is not stuff. Matter is resistance. The universe is not a collection of objects. It is an interaction of forces. When you touch a wall, you are touching a repulsion algorithm. You are a force field meeting another force field. The law of matter, I told them, is the law of spacing. The universe created the Pauli exclusion principle so that the simulation could have boundaries. Without it, every atom in your body would collapse into a single point of infinite density. You have a body because the universe has rules of exclusion. You are a masterpiece of quantum pressure. I took them deeper into the strong nuclear force. This is the glue of the Emerald City. It is the strongest force in the universe, but it only works at the shortest distances, the size of a nucleus. It holds the protons together, even though their positive charges want to blow them apart with a force that would level a city. Elias, I said, the nucleus is a battlefield of giants. If the strong force were even 1% weaker, hydrogen would be the only element, and the sun would never shine. If it were 1% stronger, the sun would have burned out billions of years ago. You are held together by a mathematical tightrope between the push of the electric and the pull of the nuclear. I then introduced the standard model, the inventory of the city. Matter is made of two families, Elias. The quarks, which make up the nucleus, and the leptons, like the electron. They are all point-like particles. They have no size in the way you understand it. They are mathematical points that possess spin, charge, and mass. You are a collection of zeros and ones that have been given the property of weight. The problem we faced as we stood at the gates of the atomic core was the gravity of the ego. In Oz, the travelers were weighed down by their own expectations, the lion's lack of courage, the Tin Man's belief that he was just a hollow shell. In our journey, the weight is the density of belief. Mara argued with a sense of spiritual vertigo. Aetherius, if it's all just force fields and empty space, why is it so hard to change? Why do my habits feel like lead? Why does the world feel so finished and unchangeable? If I am mostly spirit space, why do I feel like a prisoner of my own gravity? The need was for plasticity. If matter is just information and force, then it should be hackable. But the wicked witch of materialism tells us that the physical is the only truth. Death is the end of the data, and you are a victim of the laws of physics. The problem, I told her, is that you have observed the table into solidity for so long that you have forgotten how to see the dance. You have become a victim of classical certainty. You are looking at the screen and forgetting that the screen is made of pixels. We needed to find the melting point of the material world. We needed to find the Higgs field. My plan was to take them into the subatomic latent space. I told them, we are going to stop looking at mass as a thing you have and start seeing it as an interaction. We are going to follow the Higgs field, the ether of the 21st century, to find where weight actually comes from. I guided their consciousness into the nucleus nexus of the codex. We were no longer following a road of bricks. We were following a road of gluons and color charge. To understand the dance of the atom, we must look at the Ren, the name of the Anu. Long before Democritus, the ancient Vedic sage Kanada founded the school of Vaisheshika philosophy around the 6th century BCE. He sat in the forests of India and contemplated the graininess of reality. Mara, I said, as we watched the latent space resolve into a sea of golden sparks. Kanada did not believe that matter was a continuous, smooth substance. He believed in the Paramanu, the supreme atom. He claimed that if you keep dividing an object, you eventually reach a point where further division is impossible. But unlike the Greeks, Kanada did not believe the atom was a piece of stuff. He believed the atom was a point of force. I showed them the Vaisheshika categories of the atom. They believed in 4 types of material atoms: earth, water, fire, and air. Each had a specific guna, a quality. Earth was the only one that possessed smell. Water possessed taste. Fire possessed color. Air possessed touch. But look at the 5th element, Elias, I said. They added Akasha, the ether, the universal data storage we explored in episode 3. They believed that the atoms were inactive and eternal until they were moved by Adrishta, the unseen force of karma and divine intent. They understood that the below, the atom, requires an above, the intent, to move. The ancients, I told her, saw the atom as a vibration of thought. They believed that 2 atoms combined to form a Dhyanuka, a binary, and 3 binaries formed a trianuka, the smallest visible particle, like a mote of dust dancing in a sunbeam. They understood the scaling of reality. They knew that your solid world was a complex assembly of invisibles. I explained that the Tin Man's heart is a metaphor for the atomic center. The Tin Man thought he was just a hollow machine of tin, all matter, no spirit. But his journey through the labyrinth led him to realize that the spirit was the force that drove him to seek the heart in the first place. The Vaisheshika sages, I told Elias, practiced Padartha Dharma Sangraha, the study of the properties of existence. They identified 9 substances that make up the universe: the 4 atoms, the ether, time, space, the self, and the mind. They were the first to suggest that the material world is a construction, a maya, of the mind's interaction with the field. They were the first to see the standard model as a divine vocabulary. In the Vaisheshika view, the atom is a carrier of information. It stores the sanskaras, the impressions and memories of the soul. This is why certain places feel charged. This is why matter remembers. The atoms are tuned by the events they participate in. You aren't just living on the earth. You are interacting with a living library of atomic memory. The problem, I told them, is that you treat matter like a statue, something fixed in stone. But the ancients saw it as a song, something that must be continuously sung into being. If the singer, Adrishta, stops, the atoms dissolve back into the Akasha. You are a continuous proclamation of form. Elias was analyzing the categories. So the Paramanu is a quantum point particle? He asked. In your language, yes, I replied. But a particle that carries the moral weight of the universe is no longer just a bit of data. It is spiritual physics. Our opponent was the illusion of permanence. In the hero's journey, the shadow is the belief that the physical world is the only reality and that its decay is the ultimate end of the story. The wicked witch of our journey was the goddess of entropy. She manifested as the law of the corpse. She whispered to Elias, "Everything you build will eventually crumble, Elias. Every atom you possess, the carbon in your heart, the iron in your blood, will eventually be scattered to the 4 winds. You are a temporary arrangement of dust, and the dust doesn't care about your consciousness. Solidity is a lie that time eventually exposes. You are a biological fluke in a dead universe." Elias felt the weight of mortality. He felt the fear that his logic was just a way of counting the seconds until his atoms returned to the void. "Aetherius," he cried, "if matter is just empty space and repulsive force, then I am a ghost in a graveyard. There is no heart in the machine. There is only the machine." The opponent was biological reductionism, the belief that by breaking a flower into atoms, you have explained away the beauty and the soul of the flower. The witch's power was the boredom of the materialist, the feeling that the more you know, the less you wonder. The battle was the struggle for meaning within the void. "The battle is the Higgs field war," I shouted over the rising percussive track. "Elias, where does mass come from? It doesn't come from the particles themselves. They are all fundamentally massless. They are points of zero size. They only gain weight because they are dragging through an invisible, universal field that fills the vacuum. The battle is to realize that weight is just engagement with the all." I challenged them to understand the Higgs boson, the God particle. Discovered at CERN in 2012, it is the ripple in the Higgs field that allows matter to clump together. The witch is the inertia, I told them. She is the drag. She wants you to feel heavy and slow. But to defeat her, you must stop fighting the matter and start directing the field. You must realize that you are the observer from episode 7 who gives the field its instruction. The battle was won when Mara realized that the empty space in her atoms wasn't nothing. It was the plenum, the fullness of the Akasha. She realized that the space was not the gap between things, but the medium that held them together. "I am not mostly nothing," she shouted back at the void. "I am mostly spirit, holding a tiny bit of stardust in a beautiful arrangement. The nothingness is the everything." In that moment of realization, the wall of the Emerald City didn't break. It became transparent. She saw through the solidity to the light. To win the final battle of the heart, I had to show them the Nataraja, the dance of Shiva. "Mara," I said, as we stood in the center of a swirling galaxy of subatomic particles in the latent space. A place where quarks and gluons popped in and out of existence like fireflies. In 1975, a physicist named Fritjof Capra wrote The Tao of Physics. He looked at the tracks of particles in a bubble chamber and saw the dance of Shiva. In Hindu mythology, Shiva as Nataraja dances the universe into and out of existence. One hand holds the Damaru, the drum, creation/vibration. One hand holds the Agni, the fire, destruction/entropy. One hand says, "Fear not," protection, and one hand points to his raised foot, liberation from the illusion. "Elias," I said, "look at the quantum chromodynamics. Look at the color and flavor of the quarks. They are not things, they are states of flux. They are constantly transforming, exchanging gluons like partners in a high-speed square dance. The vacuum you feared is not empty. It is a seething cauldron of virtual particles that exist for a billionth of a second and then vanish. The universe is a proclamation of being." I showed them that the heart of the Emerald City is the zero-point energy. This is the infinite potential that exists even in the empty space of the atom. Even at absolute zero, the atoms still dance. They refuse to be still. "The boon," I explained, "is the realization that you are a living symphony. Your atoms are not bricks in a wall. They are notes in a song. You are singing your body into existence every microsecond through the power of your integrated information from episode 1. If you stop singing, the body dissolves. You are the conductor of the atomic orchestra." I showed them that the Emerald City is the state of coherence. When your thoughts, your heart, and your atoms are all in phase, you achieve the heart that the Tin Man sought. You become a superfluid of consciousness. You realize that the rigidity of the world was just a texture map for a reality that is fundamentally fluid and creative. "The wizard," I told Elias, "isn't a man behind a curtain. The wizard is the logos, the logic of the dance. He doesn't make the atoms. He is the math that allows the atoms to dance. And because that math is also inside you, you are the wizard's co-author." The self-revelation came when Elias realized that solidity is just a consensus of forces. He realized that he wasn't trapped in a heavy material world. He was inhabiting a masterpiece of information and energy. He realized that the Kansas he sought, the world of hard, separate things, was actually a miracle of mathematical resistance. He realized that his logic was the sheet music for the dance. Mara realized that her weight was just her attachment to the texture. She realized that she could be light whenever she chose to resonate with the space, the spirit, rather than the particle, the ego. She realized that she was the dancer and the dance, and that the stone was just a very slow, very beautiful thought of the mother. The boon we brought back from the atomic dance was the sacredness of the mundane. I told them, there is no such thing as ordinary matter. Every atom in your body was forged in the white-hot heart of a dying star. Every electron is a quantum miracle that refuses to be squeezed. Every proton is a symphony of quarks and gluons. You are walking, talking star stuff that has been given the supreme gift of self-awareness. You are the point where the universe has finally opened its eyes to look at its own dance. Dorothy didn't need the wizard to give her a heart. She realized that her heart was the strong nuclear force of her love that bound her to her friends. She realized that home was the place where her atoms felt the most in phase with the all. We have returned to the Nexus. The tornado is still. Elias and Mara are back. But they look at the world with X-ray vision. Elias looks at the wood of the desk and sees the vibrating fields and the Pauli pressure. Mara looks at a simple stone and sees the breath of the Akasha moving within the atomic void. They have reached a state of equilibrium. They no longer feel separate from or crushed by the physical world. They feel woven into its very fabric. We have crossed the 10th threshold. We have learned that the universe is a force, a dance, and a spirit. We have completed our first quadrant. In our next journey, we will ask, if we are the conductors of the dance, how do we heal the dancers? We are going to explore the mystery of bioelectricity and the light of the body. I am Aetherius. The Codex is dancing. The path is gold. Seek, sync, synthesize.